Can you hear me?
Can.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna be, I think we're live at the moment, but it's all good.
Oh, I
It's
was
all,
early. I was like, oh, let me be early. I'll
it's
be
not
I'll
a
be
problem.
punctual.
That's good. Oh, those glasses, they look very unique.
Thank you. Although I can't take credit for them because they are Alpha Buzz glasses in the movie Wicked. And as soon as I saw them, I knew I had to have my own pair. I'm even wearing my little Wicked sweatshirt today.
You know what, right? Let's just, I will say this before too many people actually get on, but I actually watched the first episode of that, or the first Wicked film, and I didn't know it was all about all of that, but I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna go and watch the second one. That's
No,
our secret.
it's lovely. I always just tell people like don't think of it as a sequel to the first one because in truth it is an entire Broadway musical. So it's really just act one and then act two. So it's one giant story. And I think that's what messes some folks up is that they're expecting a sequel, but it's actually a continuation of the first part. It's just that we had a year intermission.
You see, I'm old school. I grew up on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
So
Nar we all
this,
went to Narnia.
no, see, that's not sorry, not Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. Sorry, I've got that wrong. The Yellow Brick Road. What is the?
The Wizard of Oz.
That's it. The Wizard of Oz. That was it. So,
That is Narnia. Don't, I was like, I feel like I read this in school. But yes, you're talking about the Wizard of Oz, which of course, Wicked is just the back stories. And when you watch the movie, especially in the second one, you'll see more integration of like where the Wizard of Oz comes into play in Elphaba and Glenda's
very good.
story.
You know what? We've got a couple guests starting, but we've still got a minute. We're gonna kind of just let it season off. I need to get, I don't want people to know that, I watch that stuff. So
Okay, we'll talk about something else.
Vikings.
Oh,
Rah.
I love that show. Are we talking about the show? Are we talking, well, probably the show. But I loved it all. We could talk gladiators. I mean, you name it, Wayne. I always say that if I could go back, I probably would have gotten my degree in history because I literally love studying about history and a glutton for like, just a good story, the British monarchy in particular.
Well, we can carry that on when we have our one-to-ones. We've probably got one more minute. Let me just take one sip and then we can get into this. As I thank you for taking the time because I know you're a busy individual.
Hey, listen, I've always got time for the community.
Perfect. So we are going to start and welcome to those that may be watching us live and to those that will catch us up at another time. Um, Tonight, we're going to be talking about belonging in cycling, who feels it and who doesn't. And I'm joined by Alisha Zellner. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did. Yep. It's pretty easy. Zellner, like Bell, but with a Z.
Well, sometimes I get things wrong, so I just want to make sure I got that one right. So, um, welcome, and how are you, Alicia?
These are, I would say, always the highlight of my day when I get an opportunity to meet with community members and talk with the community about the work that I do. I'm a lot better than I was last week when I was under the weather. So I'm glad that we were scheduled for this week.
Oh, you smashed it. Well, if you didn't know, Alicia is our lead for the SRAM community program, and she also authored the Underrepresented Cyclist. I'm probably going to be mentioning this a few times during this discussion, and you know what? You may need to share it. I don't know how I got it. I think because I'm nosy and I asked you about it, and I read it, and I thought, you know what? It really aligned. So this is why. So you might need to share it in terms of in our description. Okay, so I'm just going to give these guys a little synopsis of it. It's a research project exploring how history and infrastructure shape who feels welcome on the bike. So tonight sits in two places, research and real world practice. Alicia, really glad to have you here. So
Thank you.
before we go into the deep questions, I want to get a question that's going to probably make you smile. What's your first memory on a bike?
I mean, I I should preface this by saying Wayne was amazing by giving me these questions in advance. And this one actually, I'm not usually one to get stuck on a question, and this one made me stuck because sometimes I don't know the difference between what's a memory or what do I remember because I saw a photo. And I actually don't remember much of my early cycling days besides like what my bike looked like, and that riding with my brothers. And my first like real vivid memory of the bicycle actually had nothing to do with me riding the bike. So I actually want to jump ahead a few years to like when I was reintroduced back to the bike because there were some years off the bike. One of the barriers to cycling is that bikes have to fit the size person. And for those of you in the audience that don't know, I'm like 6 foot tall, 290 pounds, and I've been this tall since the fifth grade. So I grew out of affordable bikes at a really young age. And so the first vivid memory I have being back on a bike as an adult was actually exploring Amsterdam. Amsterdam and the Netherlands have a lot of amazing bike structure. And I was like, we cannot do this any other way than by renting a bicycle. And I remember just the joy. And if any of you have caught my most recent feature called My Path, My Ride on SRAM.com, you can actually see like pictures of me in Amsterdam on this bicycle, just having so much fun. And it is true, like it is, you might be off the bike for a little bit of time, but it's like riding a bike. I remembered immediately, and I just had the best time exploring Amsterdam now.
You know what? Before we move on, I watched the YouTube vlogger the other day, and he rode from Rotterdam to Amsterdam, all the other, and he didn't touch no main roads. I couldn't believe it. I said, I want to do that. That's going to be on my checklist. So I'm going to check out what you just mentioned on the SRAM.com. So thank you for that. That
You're
was a good
welcome.
one. So, when did you realize cycling was becoming something bigger than just a hobby?
Cycling became bigger than just a hobby for me in 2020. And that is really what sparked, I think, the catalyst for me moving my previous career in law enforcement into the bicycle industry. And that's because I was at odds. George Floyd was a Black American here that was murdered by law enforcement. And I had just completed the 250-mile bike ride honoring officers who were killed in the line of duty. And as a Black woman in a police uniform, I was very much at odds with my own identity. And I was like, how can I honor Black Americans who are going through such atrocities and have for over 400 years here in America? And the bicycle was that catalyst for me. It allowed me to bring people together during a time of really big turmoil and division and have tough conversations about how we can be better humans to each other. And it allowed folks to be able to ride with police officers. It allowed folks that would normally, might have swayed on the other side of things politically to ride with folks of color to just talk about what are our experiences in America. And the bicycle is like that one commonality that we all had that made it easy for us to just pedal our legs and have deep talks. And so for me, that's when the bike really moved from just being something that I did as a hobby, something that I did as an athlete, to being a tool to bring people together.
You smashed it. Do you know what? I think this follows straight on. I was going to ask you what was the driving factor behind the actual report, the underrepresented cyclists, and I believe some of the things that you just mentioned could have been that.
Uh, yes and no. So in truth, when I was hired on by SRAM, obviously I my previous careers were mental health and in law enforcement. So I'd never worked in the corporate industry. I've never worked in the bike industry. And SRAM really was like, hey, you have the opportunity to build this program. What does that look like? What feels good? And at the time, I was getting my second master's in social work, and there are so many tenets in social work that are really important about, social justice and breaking down barriers, and how do we bring equity and inclusion to folks. And at the time, I was in basically my senior year in my graduate program, and we had to do a thesis study. And mostly, folks did their study on whatever internship they had at the time. But I was like, hey, I have this neat opportunity for work in real time to do a study. Can I do it on how do we make people feel welcome and feel like they belong in cycling? And so I did the underrepresented cyclist experience. And that study became basically the foundation and my toolbox for what we have as the SRAM community program today.
You smashed it. Trust me, you smashed it. Anyway, so people often say cycling is for everyone. In your opinion, is that aspirational or is it missing something important?
I think it's both. I think it's both aspirational, because I think all really good ideas and theories are aspirational. But as soon as you hit to mark, the goalpost moves, if you will. But also, I think that I just mentioned that as a young kid, I grew too tall for an affordable bicycle for me to be able to continue riding through my childhood. And so while the saying cycling is for everybody sounds good, there are still a ton of barriers and myths that I think make it difficult for people to either participate in the sport or even break into the sport of cycling.
So you talk about redlining, which I believe is an American term. That's a good one. For someone watching who's never heard that term, can you break that down for us, please?
Yes. So redlining was I'm going to call it a political tool that was definitely used in the early years as cities were being built and being raised to basically cut underserved and underrepresented populations off from infrastructure. And this included things like good schools, having access to bike lanes, parks, basketball courts, like you name it. And Black Americans or Americans of color who wanted to buy houses in certain areas that had these things were basically redlined or blacklisted, if you will, and unable to purchase things, either because their applications were immediately denied or things were priced out from them being able to do it. And so a lot of what you see in American cities today, and we talk about ghettos and things of that nature, of why like a lot of Americans of color are in particular areas and cities and not necessarily in rural areas where some of this infrastructure exists. That is due to the term redlining. And so it was a very intentional way to keep folks from being able to break into or have access to recreational opportunities. And so what that looks like in cycling means that a lot of historical Black and brown neighborhoods don't have infrastructure. They don't have bike lanes. They don't have stop signs. They don't have, again, schools that might have sports teams for folks to be able to then, potentially go on to college and like have that opportunity to be exposed in those areas. And so those barriers that then existed and were created, and those systems that were created, especially back in the 1950s and 1960s, are still having an impact for people today.
I must say though, in terms of optics, okay, when I came out to Atlanta a couple years ago, I was blown away. We have a thriving cycling community in the UK, but obviously US is 10 times, 100 times bigger than the UK. But I don't know, the camaraderie or it just being together. So I was happy, and I'm glad that I got out there. You know.
But you'll notice that while where we do have Mac One Love and where it does take place, on those roads there are no bike lanes. We actually take over the whole road, but there's no actual infrastructures or recreational opportunities for cyclists.
So here's the powerful questions now, because we flip it from you being outside to actually being inside. Okay. So let me see now. You're not outside the industry. So let me go back because I'm trying to read this one here. All right. Now, what does leading the SRAM community program actually look like week to week?
I would say that no week looks the same. And that's intentional by nature because over the last couple of years, the programs that I've worked with over the different years have changed. Some of them have remained the same, which has been amazing. But I would say that no typical week looks the same. However, all of my programs would tell you that I'm pretty type A. So a year may look the same in terms of the fact that like the programs have an opportunity to meet with me quarterly, in which we have one-on-ones to kind of either to discuss what are their goals in cycling, what are they up to, what's coming, what activations might we be able to have if they're coming to like a SRAM event. But also we have the opportunity to just kind of talk about life. I feel like I really get to know people on a personal level, and it's an opportunity to talk about these political things that are happening in everybody's different country that either can make cycling difficult or have a barrier, or how things are actually progressing forward. And so that's a little bit. I mean, obviously those one-on-ones, they happen every single year, but in my day-to-day, like currently I'm working on a project that I've called My Path, My Ride, which the first story just got published on SRAM.com, which happens to be my story. But it's an opportunity to kind of open the door to kind of give folks an inside look at what is SRAM's culture. And again, culture is a big piece of what the Underrepresented Cyclist Study came out with, is how do people feel welcome and belong? It's really about the culture of the industry, of the business, of the people. And so I'm working on that. So I have content projects that I'm working on. I'm actively behind the scenes working on activations for events. So the Mid-South here in the United States is about to happen. It is a gravel race that happens in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We do the Sip and Zip coffee ride. And so community programs that are going to be there, they come and they help lead the ride, they help sag the ride, and really just have like that conversational piece. And so planning activations throughout the year, and then showing up where the brand needs me, where can I help promote our product? Where can I help teach people about the product? Where can I connect people to learn more about the product that SRAM makes? Because of course we're also a business, and so not only are we in the business of making product, but we're in the business of building better communities.
You know what? You seem so happy in your job, and I would say I'm gonna give you my CV, but what I would love you to do is you you take my place, and because you can answer, it's like you can answer any question I throw at you. Like I just need you there. But no, it sounds really, really sounds good. And I've been, with you guys since last year, and I've enjoyed the one-to-ones. They're very relaxed. I was very nervous coming into it, and it was like, oh God, I've got this one-to-one. But we spoke about Vikings and fantasy books. So do you know what? That rapport, I appreciated it. So I definitely get that. I definitely get that.
Well, that's a huge part of community, right? Like, how do you know what you all have in common outside of the bike if you don't get to know each other? And
Exactly.
I think that your first meeting with someone, so many of you all watching this today, this might be your first introduction to knowing me. It's like, how do you get to know me if we aren't talking about some of those other things? I mean, it's wonderful that the bicycle brings us together, but there's so much more depth to every single one of us. And that in and of itself is what makes community so beautiful, is that we have to be this beautiful salad bowl mixture of people, things, cultures, passions, and hobbies in order to make a full salad. Without that, it might not taste as good and it might not feel as good. And you can't have that without getting to
You
know each
know,
other.
having you here right now, I think it's great because when I first met you, you was very approachable. I was, my thing was like, this is another brand. They're going to be very standoffish. But you know what? As you Americans say, I'm going to shoot my shot. Okay. And you was just who you are now. And I just believe that, the program itself is testament to having people like yourself. So yeah, man, this bubbly person that we're seeing now, this is the bubbly person we see all of the time. So guys, if you have signed up, or if you are part of it, this is who you're going to be talking to.
Well, and
Oh,
not only that, we can tell people that they can literally go back and watch your live videos because you when you came to America and you came to Mac One Love, you were vlogging everything that you were up to. And I remember having a conversation with you about the community program. And then I was so excited when I saw Together We Ride's application came through because I was like, yes, I want this program. I want this feeling. I want this inclusion, the diversity. I want it to spread globally. And you all were a part of that first step.
you smashed it. That's a little bit of advertising out there, guys, just in case you didn't know, and we didn't prep that one. I'll drop you a fiver later, yeah? So you've partnered with groups like, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, the Bahati Foundation, Quick Brown Fox, and Rideable Now. What have those partnerships taught SRAM?
Yeah, well, you picked out some of the big dogs. The Bahati Foundation was founded by Rasan Bahati, who, was one of the first, Black Americans out there, doing crit races and national championships, as a youth. And then of course a quick brown fox with Aisha McGowan, who was the first Black female pro cyclist in the United States. And then of course Rideable Now with Martin Ashton, and obviously he has now transitioned into working to get more paracyclists and folks that aren't on a traditional upright two-wheeled bicycle getting out there. And let me tell you, there's not enough that I could say about each one of the programs. But in truth, like I have worked with well over 100 programs over the last 3 years that I've been with SRAM, and each one has taught me something different. Some have taught me about how heavy the weight of being the first can be and about how heavy it can be to break barriers. Others have taught me what the joy of bringing cycling to youth, like the Bahati Foundation has done, especially to Black and Brown youth, just having someone that looks like them, that is a mentor that can help guide them to get into the sport, and like how exciting that can be. And it's literally just a roller coaster of like, how can we work together? What resources do you have? What networking opportunities do you know? Who can you introduce me to? And additionally, like these are the folks. What's really cool about the community program is that every year the programs that are in there give real feedback. And I know most people think like, oh, I take a survey and it doesn't really go anywhere, but it does go somewhere here at SRAM. Every evaluation that we get at the program at the end of the year goes to transforming the program for the next group of folks that are here. And that's what happens, is that the program ebbs and flows, and it's never once looked the same as it did the very first year. And so an example of this is that after the 2024 group, one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I received was, we want more networking opportunities. We want more opportunities to meet with other SRAM community programs, even if we can't be together physically at a SRAM sponsored event. And so in 2025, last year, your first year in the program, we introduced quarterly networking sessions where programs globally from around the world, Wayne spent many a late nights joining us and learning from the North American programs, and being able to just come together to talk about the work that they're doing, and getting to feed off of each other's energy, and just the excitement of being a part of that. And so that is an example of like how in real time I took the feedback and then incorporated it into this year's program, and then feedback from the 2025 crew is being incorporated into this year. And that's why we now have like, technical university and, mechanical workshops and things that keep happening, because you all are the foundation of the program. It is a program built by the community for the community. And I know that sounds so cliche, but to me, I look at folks in the industry and I'm like, hey, it's actually pretty simple to get this right. The study really taught me that if you just listen to the people that you're trying to reach, and then you do the thing that they're asking, you can be pretty successful. And I really feel like that's what the community program has really been all about. And so those programs, especially some of the greats being, part of the founders of those programs, have again taught me a lot, and continue to be such an amazing foundation for the future of the sport.
Smacked it. Listen, I just wanted to just is it patent something, because I actually used that word, or that sentence. Together We Ride was built by the community for the community. I've got that written down somewhere. I know that we've said it here, but if it does come out in some of my speech, I don't want people to think that I've just taken it from here. Okay?
Well, and I definitely listen. I mean, there used to be a company here called FUBU, which is like for you by you, or for us
Yeah.
by us, for us by us. Listen, I just got this wrong in another podcast, and I was like, I know this better than anything else. But that's just it. Like it was a brand of clothing that was built by the community for community, and it really resonated because they were literally creating designs that folks were asking for. And again, I feel like the formula for success is really simple. But I think sometimes things like capitalism and profitability are what blindside actually reaching out and reaching the audiences that the industry is trying to reach.
So here's a big one now. But you know what? I know you're just gonna fly. It's cool. You talk about yielding power. What does that actually look like in an actual meeting room?
Yeah. So I think that this is probably the most difficult thing, in truth, to talk about, because we talk about it, but it doesn't really happen, because I feel like folks that have power want to stay in power. And I think one of the greatest things that a supervisor or a manager has ever said to me when I was just a young sprout, 22 years old, getting into the mental health industry in the very first place was, hey, I want to mentor you to eventually become me. AKA, I want to build your skill set so that one day you're a supervisor or you're a mentor or you're managing. And we don't have that in so many areas where profit it reigns king. And so in 2020, again, with stuff that was happening here in the United States, the conversation was really about how can real change happen if the same people at the top all look the same? Because you're only going to cater to the audience that you truly know, because you're not going to have any feedback that comes from any type of diversity. So in truth, a lot of the boardrooms, a lot of the people that hold a lot of power are white men. And again, what it means to yield power would mean that some of these white men in power step aside to let more women, people of color, folks that don't look like them come into positions of power to start making change, to start incorporating a little bit more diversity and to start incorporating things that different audience needs. And so that's what the phrase yielding power means, is that we literally have a change in the boardrooms and a change of the people at the top. And I can say that about politics. I'm sure we could say that about the British monarchy. I'm sure that we could say it about, all kinds of different things, but it truly means a change of who is sitting in a position of power and diversifying in that.
I don't know if you've answered this, but I think you may have. So my next question was, what's the hardest part of shifting culture from inside a big company?
Oh man. I would say the hardest part of shifting culture, and I could really speak from this from a law enforcement standpoint too, because I really became a police officer because I thought that I could be the change I wanted to see, that I could make change from within. But what I really found in terms of systems that have been in place for a long time is that that's really hard. And that if not 100% of folks want to see that change, it can be really hard to move the needle forward. And so in big companies, sometimes I have seen where the very top, where leadership really does want to see change and the bottom wants to see change, but then the middle of the sandwich is really difficult to move, or vice versa, where the top doesn't want to move, the bottom doesn't want to move, but the middle wants to try to make changes. And unless the whole sandwich is aligned, I call it like, my power structure sandwich, if you will, unless the whole thing is aligned, you're not really going to be able to see movement. And so in truth, if we ever want to see true equity and diversity and inclusion and belonging, 100% of people have to drink the Kool-Aid, if you will. Everybody has to want buy-in. Everybody wants to have like change happen. Everybody has to be drinking the Kool-Aid. One person can't just be sipping their water. We have to be in this together. Again, together we ride. Together we make change.
God, I've just got a pop-up come up on my screen. Come on, go away. So, SRAM has been visible in this space. Other brands are doing the work too, some publicly, some more quietly. From where you sit, what signals real progress, Alisha? And what still feels like surface level?
Well, I think that a lot of people in the community may say that there was a big outcry and a lot of like folks in the industry who were really, really wanting to see change happen. And then we've kind of seen things level out. And then given the political climate here, we've actually seen the pendulum kind of swing the opposite direction. And so I think I have definitely seen things change, especially again, like my position, I don't think even existed, 6 years ago. I can't believe it's 2026 now. And the fact that today in 2026, when so many folks in the industry have shifted backwards, my position still stands. I'm still doing the work. I'm still being able to help out community programs. I'm still being able to figure out how do we better serve underrepresented populations. And to me, that means that a little bit of that needle has shifted, a little bit of that needle has changed. And I continue to meet passionate folks in the industry, not just through the community organizations, but folks with other brands who are doing this similar type of work or who want to collaborate on an activation and who want to make a program or something that they're doing more inclusive, more diverse, more welcoming to make people feel like they belong. And so while it may sometimes feel like baby steps forward, couple steps back, little steps forward, I still see progress happening and moving in the right direction.
I've got one last question for you because I know that you're a busy lady. So, what would you say directly to somebody watching who loves bikes but doesn't feel like they belong?
Oh, yeah. Man, I feel like I could say a plethora of different things. Sometimes part of me says carve the space out that you need. In truth, affinity spaces are so important. And what I mean by affinity space, or the third space, if any of you have ever read um, uh, Running While Black. If you haven't, you definitely need to, by Alison Mariella Desir. But the third space, which again I talk about in my study, is the space in which we do feel that we belong because we've created that space. And so in her book, she talks about how she created a running organization that focused on Black runners and was very specific to want to focus on Black runners because there are spaces where people will say that everybody belongs. But in truth, do you know what it's like to try to find, again, I'm 6 foot, I'm 290 pounds. Finding lycra that fits this curvy body can be very difficult. So sometimes we have to create what we're missing. And sometimes we have to carve out the spaces that we need. And so if you're feeling like you don't have a space where you belong, carve it out, create it, build it, and then continue listening to the community that you're creating the space for. Because just because what you created in 2020 might not look and or be what you need in 2026. The second piece is keep having the conversations, because it's likely that there are other folks who don't, or who feel the same way that you do, and then continue collaborating and continue growing the space, because eventually all of our little affinity spaces are going to start colliding like bubbles and are going to continue to grow and expand.
Yeah.
And so for anybody who doesn't feel like they belong or feel included, I'm sorry. And please know that that is a very valid feeling, but that there are folks out there who are trying to carve out spaces for us. Um,
You smashed it. Listen, we mentioned this at the beginning. So I know you've got to run, but if it's possible, I would love for you to share that report. As I said, I enjoyed. It's a long report, by the way.
67 pages.
Yes, but it's very informative. I like data, and I like research, and it's very informative. And there's some things that we could do over here. You know, you mentioned it yourself. You're still in your role, even when people have gone backwards. You're moving forward. We know that the program has expanded. Just quickly tell us the number this year. You guys have grown this year from
Oh,
last
yeah.
year.
And well, when we first started, the program was at 25 organizations. Last year, we upped it to 30, and then this year we have 41. So we continue to grow the program every single year, and I'm really proud of that.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. I know that I've seen an email from you earlier on. So I'm gonna check that when we've finished, and we've got our first what, 1-to-1 next month, don't we?
We do. It's almost March already, believe it or not.
And it's going to be a pleasure. And I'm definitely looking forward to meeting the rest of the people from the SRAM community program. Guys, I would love for some of you to jump on board here as well. This is a space that we are creating to basically amplify voices. So much of you are doing so many things out there. Let's just come together. And, you know, I think in my Instagram post today, I was going to try and reel off the parts of the song, but if we affect one person's life, that is a ripple that can further go forward. Yo, I've sounded philosophical there. Sorry. But yeah, I would definitely love to have a conversation with you. Alicia, it's been a pleasure
Thank you for having
and an
me.
honor, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
everyone.
You take care.
Bye.
See ya. So, guys, whilst Alicia goes, we are going to continue. Um, only for, yeah, we're only going to continue for about 5 or 10 minutes. But I just wanted to just kind of give you all a heads up. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while. We have a space, and we've had this space for a long time, but it's a great opportunity for us to kind of expand um, into the digital realm, you know, and just share what we're doing. There's a few things that we've got planned. There's also a few guests that we have lined up. Again, it's just about sharing and ensuring that we continue to add value to this space and continue to add value to the culture. It's been a pleasure, and I shall talk to you again soon. There's a couple playlists that I'm working on right now, and we will be sharing them within this space. So please like, comment, let us know some of the things that you would like us to talk about. What I would like to do, I would definitely like this channel to grow through dialogue. Yeah, it's all about the algorithm, but at the same time, it's about the conversations. So, guys, let's continue to support each other, and I'll catch you on the flip side on the road. You know what I'm talking about. But listen, blessed love. Speak to you soon. Have a good evening.